noch einmal mir, ich hab dich lieb. Wohin ich immer gehe, ich fühle deine Nähe, ich möchte deinen Atem trinken und betend dir zu Füßen sinken, dir allein. Wie wunderbar ist dein leuchtendes Haar, traumschön und sehnsuchtsbang ist dein strahlender Blick. Hör ich der Stimme Klang, ist es so wie Musik. Dein ist mein ganzes Herz, wo du nicht bist, kann ich nicht sein. So wie die Blume welkt, wenn sie nicht küsst, der Sonnenschein. Dein ist mein schönstes Lied, weil es allein aus der Liebe erblüht. Sag mir noch einmal, mein einzig Lieb, oh, sag noch einmal mir, ich hab dich lieb.
Angels of the violet flame, legions of the sun, we are Omri, and in the heart of the violet planet there is joy this day. There is the release of light and of sacred fire and of freedom for the emerging light of those in whom the flame of freedom burns ever more brightly on planet Earth. We as priests and priestesses of the sacred fire minister to all life on the seventh ray, and we have offered our office in support of Lord Gautama Buddha, Lord of the world, for the increase of transmutation, for the elevation of the earth, and especially in this hour, for the binding of the forces of opposition, to the education of the heart, in the hearts of all evolutions of earth. From our perspective, knowing what the release of the violet flame can do for a single life and an entire planetary life wave, we realize that it is the education of the heart itself that is wanting, and which, if each life stream had from birth, would enable that one to so easily draw down the violet flame from the ion presence, and then watch the violet flame and the elementals and the violet flame angels perform those tasks which mankind consider drudgery. Beloved ones, have you thought about the fact that there is a labor crisis on planet Earth? Have you thought about the fact that many people are educated far above the jobs they are required to take? Have you considered the fact that many nations are so educated that they must import workers from other nations, and in many cases these workers are of an order and an evolution such as those who migrated to Atlantis in the last days, laggard life waves, who ultimately tipped the balance and were a major factor in the sinking of that continent? Do you understand, when a single people and a karmic group cannot provide for all of the necessities of life, when they begin intermingling with those evolutions which have a separate karma and dharma and a duty to fulfill, such as those life waves in the Middle East that are being imported by the thousands and have been throughout the continent of Europe, that this commingling of the races causes a breaking down of the perception of the dharma, that is the duty that is to be fulfilled. And it also is an interference with each of these groups balancing their karma. Beloved ones, on the violet planet you see, the violet flame itself is the action of the sacred fire for transmutation. And that which is necessary in this hour, as you hear elemental life expressing their ability to transmute, this takes place with and by the violet flame. Now, therefore, the Christ consciousness does accelerate on earth, and even so, there is an overeducation of the carnal mind, leaving behind and creating a gap for individual life streams to accelerate in their sacred labor and also to master the work of their hands. This absence of balance is one of the major factors in the balancing of the economy today. Now I am sounding the Om, which I have taken for my name, and you may sound it with me for the harmony of elemental life. Beloved ones, I direct your attention to this understanding that through the balanced action of the 7 rays, the evolutions of Earth can move forward. The violet flame is the necessary key and ingredient to the problem of labor and to the sanctification of that labor on planet Earth. We see the problems in the economy. We see those who have performed services no longer in demand because of technology advancing beyond the attainment of the heart. The heart, therefore, is the seat and the point for the issue of the violet flame. And the violet flame angels and the elementals who serve with the violet flame angels have a great and intense desire in this hour to make known to you how important it is that this violet flame and the understanding thereof must spread abroad in the earth, so that once again, by the education of the heart, by the activities that the sons and daughters of God ought to be engaged in, the true office of angels and elementals might be performed. We have told you in previous dictations that our homes are cleansed by the violet flame, the purification of the atmosphere, the removal of debris. All necessities of life can be taken care of by the action of the violet flame. We have from our home of violet flame, the violet flame planet, 144,000 priests of the sacred fire who perform the ceremonies and the rituals of the violet flame. Can you imagine such a body of 144,000 priests keeping the flame, the violet flame, burning in absolute God purity as their singular calling? These priests operate as the priesthood of Melchizedek. Beloved ones, were such a body to be assembled on earth, you would see a great, great difference. Today, the imbalance of forces that cannot be contained by these elementals who do not express themselves with full God mastery because of the burden of world hatred they must expiate through unleashing the elements. These elementals require a greater support of the violet flame and the will of God to be of service to you in the hours and days ahead, when the physical planetary conditions will be even more burdensome and more out of balance unless greater numbers espouse the sacred ritual of daily decrees to the violet flame. And these decrees must of necessity incorporate those actions of the blue flame, challenging the black magicians that would enslave not only elementals but embodied angels and the children of the light to thwart the purposes of the great white brotherhood. Due to the absence of the violet flame, we see imbalance in nature, and due to this imbalance in nature not checked by the violet flame, you see the imbalance in the psyche. You see great mounting conditions of psychological problems, divisions within the self, within the 4 lower bodies. You see moodiness, moroseness, the split personality, as you say. And then you see the body affected, as because the environment is not balanced by the violet flame through the threefold flame of the heart, there is the resulting imbalance in the chemistry of the body. Some have wondered, what is the use of the violet flame in a golden age or a place of perfection? The violet flame establishes and reestablishes the rhythm of life. It is like the oil in the gears. It is a very special quality that all have need of daily, as you need the sun and the many frequencies of the stars and the earth currents and the air and the water and the power of integration with all of these. We say, therefore, that our assistance to Gautama Buddha, to the mighty Elohim and the archangels, does come because we have understood that the saving grace of all planetary homes and of every life stream is this missing link. It is almost a missing link in the chain of evolution. And so you can see how evolution, as it were, is out of whack with the lunging forward of some talents and skills, while other parts of the human being remain almost at the primitive states of anger and passions, of hatred, rivalry, and life based upon self-preservation. We perceive that our help to Gautama Buddha must now be extended to beloved Helios and Vesta, and to the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood serving Earth's evolutions, and especially to the Chelas. We perceive that in order to keep the vow you have made to implement the plan of Helios and to call forth his judgment and to serve with the great divine director and the Darjeeling Council, to implement those ideas he has released to you at inner levels, and in order for you to draw down the divine memory of your experience in the heart of the sun, greater momentum of violet flame must therefore come to you. We are also aware that the challenge of doing all that must be done in a given day is very great when the few have the vision of heaven itself and a golden age almost manifesting, and see as well the imminence of world destruction, and know just how fragile hangs together the economies and the various systems of industry and the exchange of goods. How precarious life is. This too you understand, and you also know of life streams who are called terrorists and those like them who will stop at nothing to get even. This is, as you have also been told, the psychology of the fallen angels who have deified evil, the energy veil, and therefore are called devils. And they are not alive, but of the living dead. And they themselves who have the morality and psychology of get even at any price, place before the children of the light and the sons and daughters of God who see and know the meaning of their absolute dedication to absolute evil. Places before you, therefore, beloved hearts, the extraordinary challenge of finding the balance of service. This balance, of course, is found in your threefold flame and in the heart. You must of necessity become spiritual beings. You say, why, we are spiritual beings. Saint Germain has told us. Yes, but in your actions, in your contemplations, in your outlook, you are still materialists. And this is why there is the sense of struggle. When you espouse the life of holiness and recognize that a planet and a people depends on the nourishment of holiness, you will discover the true priorities, and also you will discover a wellspring from on high that allows you to accomplish more in less time, and therefore to indeed fulfill your physical responsibilities while remaining, as it were, a closet priest of the sacred fire, a closet priestess of the violet flame. It is not necessary to walk about in robes of the Ancient of Days, but it is indeed necessary to keep the flame, thus mindful that there are other circumstances interfering with the accomplishment of that which is at hand. I still desire to assist you with a dispensation of violet flame. I will discuss this dispensation, even as I must first point out to you that disorder, lack of system, lack of going over the lists of responsibilities you have, fulfilling them, checking those for whom you are responsible, does result in unnecessary delay in the cosmic timetable of the activity in your life and in the path of the ascension. Order is the first law of the mother, and the mother is prepared to give to you from her immaculate heart, even the mother of Jesus, a course of instruction on organization, administration, and management of yourself. But it all boils down to common sense and to thinking in logical order and to arranging your life systematically. Those who are the achievers have learned to do this, and those who achieve not and become a weight moving in the opposite direction are those who have never quite determined to challenge their own confusion and the rebellion that is behind the confusion. For it is a rebellion against the order of God, and ultimately against God as mother, who must order the entire matter cosmos. Now, beloved ones, an absence of ordering of the day may be a factor in your not invoking the violet flame, even as time itself seems to escape those who have not taken the opportunity to master its cycles, and space itself becomes cluttered in the homes of those who have not yet determined to master the laws of space, acknowledging that space is the mastery of the Buddha. Then, beloved ones, through failure to use properly these ingredients and resources of life, what suffers is the decree momentum, and what will ultimately suffer is the planetary body. I will explain it to you, beloved hearts, for my remarks are not given in any way to make you feel downhearted or in any way self-critical, but only to point to the fact that because you desire to give more, I point out those areas of life which, if you place your attention upon them, you shall be able to give more. Beloved ones, elemental life is required not only to maintain the cycles of the 4 quadrants in a planetary home of perfection, but they are also required to bear the karma of a planet and to be the instruments of transmutation by their own bodies and by the elements themselves when the violet flame is not readily flowing in sufficiency to perform that task. Some of you know that you personally are doing the work of 2 or 5 or 10 people. You do it gladly and joyfully, for you recognize the urgency of the hour. Others, however, I am sorry to say, do not even fulfill the requirements of 1 life, for the failure to intensify the application of their heart's love to the work at hand. And still others, by their own absence of resolution of their psychology, cannot think of anything to do, cannot think of what their job should be, their calling, their profession, or where they should direct their attention. This is amazing to us when we see a planet in such suffering and so many people in need. One has but to turn around, and one will see 5 mouths to feed, and this to clean up, and that task to be accomplished. And thus, you see, it is the absence of perception, which is an absence of integration of the chakras and the heart flame. And this comes back to the imbalanced threefold flame and the lack of the violet flame. The violet flame tunes the seat of the soul chakra. And at that point of the seat of the soul, one knows who I am, where I have come from, where I am going, and what is the work that is assigned to me in this life. There are, oh, so many life streams upon earth who know they have a definite assignment, a divine plan, a mission, and a calling, and they even know what it is. But because it is difficult, it requires effort, application, and they know there is opposition to it or persecution, they say, well, let someone else do that job. I will take this one. Not realizing that they back down the step ladder of initiation 3 or 4 steps, taking an easy way, leaving the vacancy at the point where they should be mastering life, with the excuse that someone else will do it, and in fact, no one else does do it. And there is one more hole in the mighty veil of the cosmic virgin that is the matrix for all life on earth. A filigree veil of magnificent design worn by the cosmic virgin portrays the life pattern for all souls in the matter cosmos. Beloved ones, there is a divine plan. And the task that is yours and yours alone is difficult. It must be difficult. It is given to you in order that you can transcend your last life or the activities of a decade ago. You are here in embodiment to pursue the calling of excellence. You must overcome. It is the law of cosmos. This is spiritual evolution. Your soul must increase in magnitude, putting on greater light and wisdom. You will not get this but by performing the task you have done for the past 10 embodiments, which is easy, requires no thought, no effort. You can cease to think, cease to create, and almost cease to be, and perform that same task, and say to yourself, I'm earning enough money to support my family. Everything's okay in my life. Here I am. I don't have to worry about war. I don't have to worry about planetary conditions. Those are not my problem. I am here safe in my little house, and I can do what I will do, and I can enjoy myself and have good times with my friends and my children. You see, beloved ones, the effort that must be expended to perform the mission is the same effort that must be expended to win the next level of initiation. You consider in wonder the great master Saint Germain or El Moria or Kuthumi. If you would do less worshiping and more analyzing of their embodiments and understand what they have gone through, you would realize how hard they worked to gain every little step of the way, pressing back that world consciousness and that darkness, and in some cases in one life, making only one statement and one increase for humanity. In other lifetimes, only holding the balance for that which had already been gained. And yet, it was a great striving, a great sacrifice, a great self-discipline. These qualities are not considered virtues, nor are they taught in the classrooms of the West. But always, can you pass your test? Can you memorize these facts? Can you be at the top percentile of your nation and thereby go on? And there is a frantic vibration among parents and children. Will they make it? Will they arrive at that level where they will no longer be slaves or mere workers? Will they become the professional people? It is a mad race, and it begins with children 1 and 2 years old. And by the age of 5 or 7, their whole life is cast in a mold by what they have achieved at that level, when at that very level the entire emphasis ought to be on the education of the heart and the power of the heart. Think of Jesus or Mother Mary, for you know the story well, of their early training in the temple, or of Samuel, who was there from his earliest years. Think of these figures who still tower above the whole race of humanity, mothers and fathers of the world. If you will cease to be frantic about the intellectual development of your children and emphasize the mastery of the heart, you will see living masters stepping forth from your humble abode, and you will see that you will send forth to the planet life streams who can take a stand and hold back whether war or the elements or the masses moving in the wrong direction to their own destruction. I speak of this because it is ever so important. I, of course, am very concerned with academic excellence, but I desire that it be learned also through the mastery of the heart, that the pride of the mental body not be encouraged at such an early age. Your children will not make it if they rely on the intellect alone. The intellect ought to be considered a computer, not a sage, not a wise man. It should have available records of history and learning and individual performance, accessible to the hidden man of the heart, to the soul wed thereto, and the soul one with that Christ can therefore make decisions based on attunement with cosmic cycles. And the sons of man may walk the earth as the 3 wise men, knowing that which is to come, for prophecy is a matter of the heart's discernment and not of psychic or intellectual prediction. I am the ruler of the violet planet. I am responsible for millions upon millions of life streams. I see and I know and I understand in the long, long history of planet Earth why Saint Germain has come to so emphasize in the Aquarian age the cycles of ritual and of the freedom of the spirit and the independence to create. So deadly have the ascended masters considered these systems of education that they saw to it that your own Mark Prophet did not have a higher education, lest his vessels be tainted and he not be able to receive in full purity the preponderance of the Word of God, which is preposterous to the intellect. Do you see? Educational institutions, while preparing mankind for the rat race, narrow the perception of the infinite until that precious opening to the universal mind of God is almost closed. And the youth of the world emerge as skeptics, as communists, as fanatics, so steeped in their pride that they will no longer consider the humbleness of their Russian parents, their Chinese parents, their Japanese parents. They look with disdain upon the hearts that gave them life and whose wisdom is far more vast than the science they have supposedly mastered. Well, since the science of this planet is in such a primitive stage, I tell you from our perspective, it is no great feat to have mastered that which is known today. We must truly understand the worth of a life stream coming into embodiment. We must truly understand it is a clean white page. There is not a single person in this room, including the messenger, that does not yet bear at the human level some burden, some scar of miseducation or improper upbringing or the attitudes of civilization. Thus, in a certain sense, each one is crippled and must overcome the mistraining according to the laws of mortality, and slowly and surely it is overcome by the violet flame. The goal of this community is to raise up parents and teachers and to create that system of education where that of which we are speaking is implemented. And we are yet limited by those who lovingly come to serve and yet themselves must overcome certain things. And therefore we tell you it will take a more concerted effort and concentration on the part of parents with teachers to do a job with these life streams that we would send you that will be acceptable to us. There is that sense. We have our work to do. Let the faculty or the staff take care of our children. You cannot abdicate your responsibility. Parents have so little knowledge regarding the psychology of themselves, so little understanding about how to truly rear life streams to become sons of God, movers of men and nations, that they must all, one and all, study to show themselves approved for this high and holy calling. Thus, beloved ones, we see how it is between two ages, when those who come from the past centuries of descent, of accepted human tradition, must be the instrument for those who must launch a new age and begin anew. Therefore, if you are the avant-garde, then you must be avant enough. You must be willing to go forward enough beyond where you have come from and not be satisfied that you have a little bit of knowledge and a little bit more wisdom than those whom you see on a daily basis. Do not judge your accomplishment or your self-mastery by your neighbors or by the evolutions of this planet. It is not a safe measure. They have gone nowhere for millions of years, and you will go nowhere if you continue to gauge your life stream by their standards. You must seek the standard of the living word. You must consider what we have been talking about for a quarter of a century and more in previous activities. And you must learn to bring down to the actions of daily life the law that we are teaching. You must understand that all is not well with your personal interchanges, activities, services, educations, professions, jobs, and skills. And many of you could be doing much more with slight adjustments and a small amount of time set aside to consider how to improve oneself and one's ability to give more God consciousness to this planet. Beloved ones, it goes back to the violet flame. And I tell you, though I am mindful of limitations and perhaps negligence on your part, still I stand with you and I understand, and I have compassion for the entire situation. But I do not desire that my compassion should produce in you the excusing of oneself so easily. Some of you are so quick to forgive yourselves that you have not even had the time to consider the burden you may have placed upon life in an act. There is time for remorse. There is time to consider. There is time to atone and repent. There is time for penance and transmutation and then absolute God freedom from the past, because you have worked through the problem and you have determined to take apart and put back together again that tendency in yourself that is like the broken needle on the record player, playing over and over and over again the same place and forgiving yourself over and over and over again. You see, you must allow God to forgive you in those instances. You must let the grace of forgiveness flow from the fount of the creative self, your own beloved Christ self, rather than be so quick to toss about your neck the floral wreath. Do you understand my meaning, precious hearts? There is a time for self-correction which has nothing to do with self-condemnation. A mistake begets a joyous desire for excellence, for self-overcoming, for reaching the star, for being like El Moria. It is not a question of guilt. It is not a question of sin. It is not a question of self-flagellation. It is a realization of limitation. I will conquer. I see this. I will cut through it. I will put it behind me.